Finally, a band from America that isn't from Boston but rather from New York City. Now, Adrenaline Mob aren't the first supergroup that I've covered on this show, but they're certainly one of the lesser known ones. They only formed in 2011, but they do make a really good case of showing off their veteran skill, even if the most notable member is trained through to drummer Mike Portnoy, even though he wasn't with them forever. The only members to actually still be a part of the band since they started are lead singer Russell Allen, best known as the lead singer of a band called Symphony X, and guitarist Mike Orlando, who mostly does solo work but is an integral part of Adrenaline Mob. So with that in mind, and with a shorter intro than usual because I have nothing to talk about, let's get to it. It's Backtracking, and this time it's Adrenaline Mob. We start off with their 2012 debut, I almost said that wrong, titled Omerta. Despite besides carrying the trend of no albums this backtracking season being self-titled, usually none of them, this album came out in 2012. As I just mentioned, I'm a fool. It was released in North America through Elm City Music, then through Europe under the Century Media label, and it was produced by the band themselves, and it's their shortest album at just under 50 minutes. And to be fair, I do quite like this album. It does a good job of showcasing the band's signature heavy metal / hard rock / alternative sound, and Russell's vocals convey that really well. Also, and this is a personal thing, but I like the skull motif, and the band use a variation of skeletons wearing suits complete with fancy trilbies on each album cover, and they call themselves a musical gang, so it kind of works out. And if you're starting to get a strange sense of smell, like you feel like something's wafting up your nose, it means one of two things. One, I farted, or two, I'm about to bring up the bad stuff about this album. It's the second one, by the way. So, all in all, I like the album sound, the production is great, and the structure of things is good sometimes. See, the main issue is not the band themselves, but it's the way that the songs are put together, which goes against what I said about the structuring, but let me explain what I meant when I said that it was good sometimes. Adrenaline Mob is a band that benefits from fast-paced, heavy-hitting, good old-fashioned balls-out rock chops. The heavy guitars, bass drumming, and vocals deliver that kind of style best, even if the lyrics can suffer from being kind of repetitive from time to time. Sure, the production usually covers that up, but that's something that I'll speak about in my final thoughts for this album. The lyrics themselves are actually pretty good and conveyed really well when the band sounds more angry and aggressive, but there are a couple of songs that have a softer, more somber feel to them in terms of lyrics, with one meant to be more of an inspiring, motivational type of song. But considering that said song has the guitar shredding and admittedly badass intro, the balance is just not there, and a great solo too, obviously. Even with the second last track titled Angel Sky, which I was hoping to be some form of ballad, it sounds heavier than it needs to be. The band basically decided to go heavy on every song on the album, even though they really didn't need to, half the time. The majority of the songs do still sound good, but there are a few misfires that just didn't sound right to me personally. Having said that, the band's performances are still pretty good, with Russell's powerful, gravelly delivery being a highlight even on the tracks where it shouldn't be. Mike Orlando's double duty work is impressive, and man, the dude can straight up fucking shred on the guitar, and he has good bass work for this album too. And for Mike Portnoy's only album with the band, he proves why he's one of the best drummers ever, really. Great timing, fills, combos, speed, just damn good work rate. I can appreciate that, it's really good. Standout songs include The Closer and Freight Train, Undaunted, Psycho Sane, Down to the Floor, and my favourite, Hit the Wall. I can recommend Omerta for its style, but not so much for its confusing substance. The really good production does a decent job of covering up the missteps of the album, though. Still, I'll give it a shot, and I definitely do think it's worth your time. It is worth your time, basically, but don't be surprised if you're not completely impressed by it. We then move on to their second album, Men of Honor. Released in 2014, it was once again released through the Century Media and Elm City labels, and will be produced by band members Russell Allen and Mike Orlando, aka the only two to still be with them. It would also be the band's first album with 4 members, with Mike Orlando relieved of his bass duties so that he can focus more on guitar, with the new bassist being John Moyer, best known for his work in Disturbed. It's also the band's only album with drummer AJ Pero, who would sadly pass away in 2015, but let's not focus on the sad stuff, let's focus on the happy stuff, such as the fact that this album is so much more well-balanced. And it's not just balanced in terms of music, but in terms of production as well. There's less messing around from that side of things, which helps quite a lot since the band themselves handle the production aspect of pretty much everything. And they managed to get the tone of things right as well, adding more not necessarily softer songs, but more evenly paced ones that show the band's more creative side. Even the super shredding guitar solos in those kind of songs still fit for the majority of the time. I do still have some issues with the lyrics, but it's not nearly as bad as it was on their debut. It's still cheesy, but with more balance to the songs. It's a more balanced kind of cheese, like a mozzarella that can walk on a tightrope. That's not a species of cheese, but it's the first thing that came to mind because I'm an idiot. So yeah, moving on. Well, mozzarella is a species of cheese, but tightrope mozzarella is not. Anyway, the band still has a great breakneck pace when it matters, and they've learned when to slow it down at the right time. Putting on more slightly slowed down tracks was a big help, and it showed that even the band felt like they went way too hard with their debut. In terms of lyrical subject matter, it's a bit more diverse, covering topics like death and some political stuff, and there's even a dirty little sex song there, which kind of works. I usually hate how that's brought across, not because of the subject matter, but the lyrics surrounding a song like that are so repetitive, and nothing that we haven't heard all before when it comes to, sex songs, basically. And for that, I'm looking straight at you, my darkest days, you one-trick pony fucks. Where was I? Alright. So yeah, Men of Honor has a more balanced and structured aspect of things, with the slight changes to the production value are really welcome. Also, a few of the songs of this time around feel like they overstay their welcome, which just shows the better balance, because there was a lot of tracks on No Motor that could have ended a lot quicker. Apart from that, more balanced feeling is definitely the band themselves, since they handled everything anyway. Russell's vocals sound a lot cleaner when they need to be, but he still has that aggression when it counts. Michael Lando's guitar work is still stellar with just fantastic solos and riffs. John Moyer, because he's a great bassist, just has absolutely thunderous work and trains super well with some great riffs of his own. And AJ Perra puts in a great work ethic behind the drums, despite this being his only album with the band, sadly. Standout songs include the title track, Let It Go, not that one, Come On Get Up, House of Lies, and probably my favourite, Until Departed. Men of Honor is a much more polished effort by the band despite having less production, instead focusing on finding the balance between making things both sound pretty both in front of the booth and behind it. And it works out well. I can recommend this album. Lastly, we have our third album, We the People. Sorry. We the People! Released in 2017, it's the band's first to only come out through Century Media, and it was produced only by Russell Allen this time, making this the first case in the band's history to have just one guy producing it. Interesting. It's also the band's longest album at just over 58 minutes, but that time is not wasted. More on that later though. Lastly, this album did see more lineup changes, as AJ Perra's passing let Jordan Kanata step in as the new drummer, even though AJ is still credited on one song in the closing track, which is a cover of Rebel Yell by Billy Idol, aka the only Billy Idol song that anyone covers if White Wedding has already been taken. That aside, there is one more lineup change, as bassist John Moyer was replaced by David Zabludowski. I can only hope I'm saying that right because, John rejoined Disturbed, so yeah. And also, this album was my first Adrenaline Mob album, and I'm pretty biased towards it. It's probably my favourite, and I'll get to the reasons why in now. It's a more political sounding album, with many of the songs taking inspiration from the 2016 presidential election. I won't say the names of those involved, they know who they are. And this album is pretty charged quite well by that particular instance, and it shows through quite a lot. Luckily, the way that the band presents it isn't them just saying fuck Trump over and over. It's the same thing that Anti-Flag did when they released American Fall in November of last year, and they could have easily just struck at Trump, but they chose not to. I can respect that kind of restraint, especially when it comes to a more politically charged album, especially when it comes to Anti-Flag or a more politically charged band. Anyway, the album is structured and balanced out a lot better, and due to the more political lyrics, it's nice that the band sort of has a focus at least, kind of a tiny concept. Also, said lyrics are a lot better because of that fact. There's also more balance to the songs in terms of an instrumental standpoint as well, with fewer guitar solos, which I kind of like. Having too much for a band like this is kind of wanky, as I like to call it, wanky solos, but having the solos appear more when they need to as opposed to more than they're needed paid off super well in the long run for this album. It also helps that said solos are still super awesome, but we'll get to that when we get to it. It's basically less is more kind of thing, or fewer is more, depending on what way you want to look at it. The album's pacing is probably the biggest change, just sounding more evened out, even considering the fact that it's mostly fast-paced. Getting that kind of thing right can be tough, but it's done really well here, and the lyrical improvements only serve to help that balance out as well. Russell Allen still sounds great with a more balanced vocal delivery, and his production choices help things go along quite well. Moog's guitar work still sounds awesome with great scales, chords, and solos. David's bass is pretty good for his first time with the band, playing his own grooves and riffs really well. And Jordan also makes a good case as the new drummer with a balance technique that I really enjoy. Standout songs include the title track, The Killers Inside, Bleeding Hands, Raise 'em Up, and my favourite in Ignorance and Greed. Very political title of that. We the People is easily the band's best album in my opinion, and with more balance, focus, and accessibility and better production, I can highly recommend it. It's really good. It just came under the shortlist for like honorable mentions in 2017. I would have put it on there, but there was way too many. And that's that. My favorite. We get to talk about my favorite and least favorite. My favorite album is obviously We the People. It's more balanced, better produced, and just has more focus, with the political leanings actually bolstering things quite well and not making things boring. Least favorite is probably Omerta. Was it the band's heaviest album in my opinion? It's super imbalanced as a result of that, and the structure just sounds weird. Also, the lyrics kinda suck sometimes, with the great production not really masking that, but it tries its damnedest. That should round things off. I'll see you next time for my first two-part episode, which will be Faith No More. I won't start working on that until maybe the start of February, because I've got some albums that I've missed out on that I need to catch up on. Also, yeah, I'm wearing a long-sleeve shirt. That's the least important thing about this video. So, as always, thank you for listening. You're awesome. Bye-bye.